Since taking office in January, the Trump administration has moved to cancel or freeze trillions in federal funding. That includes billions in funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Imagine waking up to the soft light of dawn, stepping out onto your porch and looking over the land your family has farmed for generations. But instead of the green, rolling fields you've come to love, you see cracked, lifeless soil stretching to the horizon. Your barn, once filled with the sounds of livestock and the smell of fresh hay, now stands silent, its walls weathered and leaning. The crops you planted with so much hope are withering, the leaves curled and brown under a relentless sun. The tractors sit idle, rust creeping up their frames, and the air itself feels heavier, as if carrying the weight of countless shattered dreams. This isn't just a bad season. It's the beginning of a new Dust Bowl, a crisis echoing one of the darkest chapters in American history. But this time, it wasn't a decade-long drought or poor farming practices that pushed American agriculture to the brink. It was a choice, a decision made in Washington, D.C. that sparked a trade war, sending shockwaves through the heartland and leaving farmers to pick up the pieces. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s devastated the Great Plains, driving families from their homes, wiping out entire communities, and transforming once thriving farms into barren wastelands. Now in 2025, American farmers are facing a similar crisis, but this time, the storm isn't of wind and dust. It's economic. Trump's trade war promised to put America first, to restore manufacturing, and to bring back jobs. But for the farmers who put their faith in that promise, the reality has been much harsher. Retaliatory tariffs, lost export markets, and soaring costs have driven thousands to the edge of bankruptcy. Family farms that once fed the nation are now struggling just to survive. Communities built on generations of hard work are unfulfilling. But how did it come to this? Could it have been prevented? And most importantly, what can be done to stop this economic disaster from becoming permanent? Stay tuned, because in this video, we're going to break down exactly how this crisis unfolded, the real human cost, and what the future might hold for American agriculture. If you care about the future of America's farms and the families who depend on them, you won't want to miss this. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s is a chapter that every American student learns about in history class. It's a tale of powerful winds, barren fields, and desperate families fleeing their homes in search of a better life. But what if I told you that history might be repeating itself? Back then, it was a perfect storm of environmental disaster and economic collapse. Today, the storm isn't made of dust. It's made of tariffs, trade wars, and broken promises. Imagine being a farmer in 2025. You've invested everything into your land. It's your legacy, your livelihood, your family's future. But then the global markets that once relied on your crops start to close their doors. China, one of the largest buyers of American soybeans and pork, slaps massive retaliatory tariffs on your exports. Your prices plummet, your debts skyrocket, and the buyers you once depended on turn to cheaper sources overseas. It's like watching your life's work crumble, one failed harvest at a time. Let's break this down. In the 1980s, the Dust Bowl was caused by over-farming, drought, and wind erosion. The soil literally turned to dust. But today's Dust Bowl is economic. It's driven by policies that have dried up markets, blown away profits, and eroded the stability of entire farming communities. Take soybeans, for example. In 2017, American farmers sold over $12 billion worth of soybeans to China. By 2019, that number had dropped by over 70. That's not just a statistic. It's thousands of family farms pushed to the brink of bankruptcy. It's generations of hard work wiped out in just a few growing seasons. Its small-town economies crumbling as local businesses close their doors and people leave in search of better opportunities. And here's the part that hits hardest. Many of these farmers voted for Trump, believing that his America First policies would strengthen their businesses, protect their jobs, and secure their futures. But instead, they're facing mounting debts, shrinking markets, and a deep sense of betrayal. If you drive through rural America today, you'll see the signs. Literally. For sale signs on fields that once fed the world. Abandoned barns, rusting tractors, and families packing up their lives, forced to sell off land that's been in their families for generations just to survive. But it's not just about losing a piece of land. It's about losing a piece of American history. It's about the erosion of a way of life, a deep-rooted part of American culture and a fundamental piece of the American dream. So, what happened? How did we get here? And more importantly, what can be done to stop this economic disaster before it becomes permanent? Stay tuned, because in the next part, we'll dig even deeper into the policies that triggered this crisis and the real human cost of America's trade war. Trump's trade war. It was supposed to put America first, to bring jobs back, to make the US economy stronger. But for many American farmers, it has been nothing short of a nightmare. Imagine this, you're a soybean farmer in Iowa. For decades, your soybeans have been a critical export to China, the world's largest market for this crop. In 2017, American farmers sold over $12 billion worth of soybeans to China. It was a relationship that fed not just the world, but also entire rural communities across the Midwest. But then, the trade war hit. China responded to US tariffs with their own, targeting American agriculture as a pressure point. Soybeans, pork, and corn, some of the most valuable American exports, suddenly became much more expensive for Chinese buyers. The result? A devastating collapse in demand. By 2019, soybean exports to China had dropped by more than 75%. That's not just a statistic. It's thousands of farmers watching their profits evaporate, their debts pile up, and their hopes for the future fade. But the pain didn't stop there. With China turning to other countries like Brazil for soybeans, American farmers found themselves in a vicious cycle. Prices plummeted, storage bins overflowed. Farmers who had invested in expanding their operations found themselves sitting on mountains of unsold crops. Imagine being a farmer who took out a loan to buy more land or better equipment, only to see your primary market disappear overnight. That's a financial disaster that doesn't just affect one family. It ripples through entire communities. And it's not just soybeans. Pork producers faced a similar fate. China, the largest consumer of pork in the world, imposed heavy tariffs on US pork products. American hog farmers suddenly found themselves competing against cheaper, tariff-free pork from Europe and South America. Even those who didn't rely directly on exports have felt the impact. When farmers lose money, they spend less in their local economies. They buy fewer tractors, they cut back on maintenance, they close their wallets to local businesses. Small towns that once thrived on agricultural income are now facing their own economic crises. But here's the real tragedy. Many of these farmers voted for Trump, believing that his tough stance on trade would protect their livelihoods. They cheered at rallies, wore the red hats, and hung Trump banners on their barns. They believed the promises. But the trade war didn't just hurt their bottom lines. It shook their faith in a system they thought was built to protect them. It's a bitter irony. The very people who helped put Trump in the White House are now the ones paying the highest price. So, what's the way out? How can American farmers recover from this crisis? And is it even possible to rebuild the trust that's been shattered? Stick around, because in the next part, we'll dive into the human cost of this trade war, the families, the communities, and the traditions that are being lost. Behind every statistic is a real person with real struggles. For every graph that shows a dip in exports or a rise in debt, there's a family fighting to keep their farm. A father working late into the night to make the numbers add up, and a mother worrying about whether they can afford to keep their home. Imagine a family in Kansas, a state known as the breadbasket of America. They've farmed the same land for 5 generations. They've weathered droughts, storms, and market crashes, but nothing prepared them for the economic storm brought on by the trade war. When China imposed tariffs on American soybeans, their biggest crop, the impact was immediate. Prices dropped, orders were cancelled, storage bins filled up, then overflowed, because there was no market for their harvest. The local bank started calling, asking about missed payments. Neighbors who used to wave from their tractors now talk in whispers about bankruptcy and foreclosure. And it's not just the financial hit, it's the emotional toll. The feeling of being let down, of being promised prosperity and instead facing ruin. It's the guilt of looking at your children and wondering if the farm will still be there for them when they grow up. One farmer in Iowa said it best. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash. You see it coming, but you can't do anything to stop it. For some, the only way to survive has been to sell off their land. Sometimes to foreign buyers, sometimes to corporate giants, just to pay off their debts. That's more than just losing a piece of property. It's losing a part of your identity, your heritage, your place in the world. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a human issue. It's about the erosion of communities that have been the backbone of America for centuries. It's about the loss of a way of life, a piece of American culture that can't be rebuilt once it's gone. But what's most frustrating for these families is the feeling that they were betrayed. They voted for a promise to protect American jobs, to bring back manufacturing, to make America great again. But now, they're the ones paying the price. So, what can be done? Is there a way to turn this around? Can American agriculture bounce back? Or are we watching the slow, painful death of a once proud industry? In the next part, we'll explore the long-term consequences of this crisis and what it could mean for the future of American farming. When we talk about the long-term impact of this crisis, it's about much more than just a few tough seasons or a temporary drop in profits. It's about the slow, painful erosion of an entire industry and the ripple effects that spread far beyond the fields. Imagine a small farming community in the Midwest. For generations, these towns have thrived on agriculture. The local diner serves eggs and bacon from a nearby farm. The tractors come from a dealership just down the road. The feed and seed store, the machinery repair shop, the hardware store. They all rely on the success of local farmers. But when those farmers struggle, the entire local economy feels the impact. As exports dry up and debts pile higher, farmers spend less. They cut back on new equipment. They put off repairs. They tighten their belts, which means less money flows into local businesses. One small town in Nebraska saw its main street go from a bustling hub of activity to a row of boarded-up shops in just a few years. The hardware store that had served the community for 50 years closed its doors. The local bank, which had helped generations of farmers buy land and grow their businesses, shut down. Even the high school football team had to cancel its season because too many families had left town. But it's not just the local businesses that suffer, it's the families themselves. When a farm fails, it's not just a business going under, it's a way of life disappearing. It's generations of knowledge, tradition, and culture being lost. It's the stories, the hard work, the sacrifices of grandparents, parents, and children being wiped away. And the damage doesn't stop at the county line. When American farmers can't compete in the global market, It weakens the entire US agricultural sector. It reduces America's influence in global trade negotiations. It makes the country more dependent on foreign imports, which can be a risky position in times of conflict or economic instability. If this trend continues, the United States could lose its status as a global agricultural powerhouse. That's not just bad for farmers, it's bad for everyone. It means higher food prices, less food security, and a loss of economic power on the world stage. But here's the big question. Can this be reversed? Can American agriculture find a way to bounce back, to adapt to a rapidly changing global market, and to reclaim its position as a leader in the world? In the next part, we'll look at what it will take to turn this around, the policies, the innovations, and the community efforts that could save American agriculture from becoming just a chapter in the history books. So, what have we learned from this journey through America's forgotten fields and struggling small towns? We've seen how a trade war, intended to make America stronger, instead pushed many American farmers to the edge of financial ruin. We've heard the stories of families forced to sell land that had been in their families for generations, of communities slowly fading as farms shut down and main streets go dark. We've explored the long-term consequences, the loss of global influence, the erosion of rural economies, and the weakening of national food security. If this trend continues, the US could permanently lose its status as a global agricultural powerhouse. But it doesn't have to end this way. America's farmers are some of the toughest, most resilient people on the planet. They've weathered storms, droughts, and economic downturns before. They've built this country, one harvest at a time, one season at a time. But they can't do it alone. If you care about the future of American agriculture, if you believe in the strength of small towns, if you want to see America remain a leader in the global market, then now is the time to act. Share this video. Let others know what's happening. Speak up for the farmers who feed us all. Don't let this be the new Dust Bowl. Don't let history repeat itself. Subscribe for more insights on the US economy, real stories from the front lines, and what we can all do to support the backbone of America, its farmers. Thank you for watching, and let's keep this conversation going.